create international opinion, the street opinion. I wouldn't say international opinion already there. Media is supporting the Americans. Media is supporting anti-terrorist action everywhere. But you have to have street support in the Middle East, in the Muslim countries. 2 billion people have to be mobilized onto your sides. And that could only be possible, I think, if we involve United Nations in the operation in a sort of coalition to take action against Osama or bin Laden, if Osama and bin Taliban, if there is need to be.
Wajid Shamsul Hassan in London, the former Pakistani High Commissioner to Britain. Thank you so much for being with us. Well, the attacks in the U.S. continue to elicit strong reactions around the world. For more on that part of the story, we're joined by CNN's Liz George in London. Liz.
Thank you, Zain. Australia and the US have applied their mutual defence treaty, and Australia will join the list of countries aiding the investigation. A statement released by the White House reads in part, although our alliance with Australia was crafted under very different circumstances than exist now, the events of September the 11th, 2001 are a powerful reminder that the alliance and our shared commitments are no less valid today. Australia shares our assessment of the gravity of the situation and is resolute in its commitment to work with the United States and all freedom-loving people to combat international terrorism. Senior US officials say they've asked moderate Arab states to prevent wealthy Muslims from sending money to terrorist groups as the US seeks Middle Eastern support for any campaign against the Taliban or Osama bin Laden. Bahrain's foreign minister says he remains confident about relations with Washington.
It shouldn't affect American-Arab relation at all, because we stand as a friend, we've been cooperating, and we are going to cooperate to arrest and punish those people, and this is doesn't represent the Arab world at all. The Arab world expressed its views. The Arab world showed his sadness on this catastrophe. So really, it shouldn't affect this relation, only and make it stronger in the future.
It's becoming an anxious time for many Arab Americans and Muslims in the United States, many of whom are adding their voices to the national chorus. Muslims have been gathering in mosques and community centres offering prayers and raising money for victims. However, some, including many Afghans, worry about becoming targets for Americans' anger. Rusty Dornin has the story from California.
Arif Armah sold every American flag in his store in Fremont, California, a source of pride for him right now. Armah fled Afghanistan when the Soviets invaded. He believes his native land is being unjustly blamed for terrorism the U.S. increasingly believes was the work of a man from Saudi Arabia.
No, I don't believe it is Afghani people. It's just this tourism, Osama bin Laden.
Others came here when the Taliban regime took over. Some say the world turned its back on Afghanistan when that happened, and that isolation allowed the regime to harbor Osama bin Laden.
This terrorist group that is terrorizing the world has been torturing and victimizing, massacring our people in Afghanistan. We have asked numerous times for international help, and we got none.
Mohammed Kamosh worries that Afghanis here will be blamed for the Taliban's actions. The day of the attacks, someone threw a rock at his storefront.
Maybe something happened to us, something like my kids, they go to school, they are under stress. People look at them, that he's Afghan, you guys are doing that.
Friday, a holy day for Muslims. This Friday, a feeling of vulnerability. Outside the only Afghan mosque is extra security and local police patrols. While the threats have been relatively minor, there is uncertainty and unease among the Afghan community. Afghani businesses line the streets in downtown Fremont. Many here say those left in Afghanistan are for the most part the poor, brutalized by the war with the Soviets and now the repressive policies of the Taliban. Afghans here fear the talk of war.
The innocent people get killed. They should do something. They should talk with the Taliban to get that guy, you know. They shouldn't kill these people, the innocent people.
People here worry that revenge for Tuesday's attack may mean an all-out strike against a nation they feel has suffered enough. Rusty Dornan, CNN, Fremont, California.
In Iran, where the United States has long been considered the enemy, an unprecedented show of sympathy. 60,000 spectators and soccer players observed a minute of silence at the Tehran Soccer Stadium before a World Cup qualifying match. Iranian leaders have strongly condemned Tuesday's attacks. A gesture a U.S. State Department official has said Washington would like to build on in the future. People from around the world were killed in the attacks in Europe, Africa and Asia. Thousands of people attend services in memory of those who died on Tuesday. Let's take a look.
Like a torch, like a beacon, even as we mourn and grieve. For if we are steadfast, we know that no darkness, no evil can ever extinguish that beacon of hope. That's a look at how the world is reacting. Now back to Zain at CNN Center.
Thanks, Liz. Well, Wall Street's planning to open for business on Monday. The New York Stock Exchange told its opening bell on Friday. It rang not to start a day of trading, but in remembrance. NASDAQ and the exchange have been closed since Tuesday and the longest shutdown since World War I. And some analysts say the attacks could push an already weakened economy into recession.
What we perhaps forget in all this is that the American economy, large though it is roughly 2/3 consumer spending. The consumers, certainly from our point of view over here and in other world markets, consumers have been the spenders of last resort. We're now asking them to sort of gird up their loins after this to go at it again. I think that's possibly a very tall order, and I would suspect anyway for perhaps this quarter and the next quarter that the American economy will skate into recession.
Tuesday's attacks have led three of America's largest companies to issue profit warnings. General Electric says its insurance business expects claims of some $600 million as a result of the attacks. Another insurance company, MetLife, says it stands to lose between $250 and $300 million. However, it says it'll do everything possible to pay claims promptly. And carmaker Ford reports that it'll cut third-quarter production by some 110,000 vehicles. That's because transport problems have held up delivery of components.
And in remarks that are sure to be closely watched, the oil minister of the United Arab Emirates says that OPEC will act immediately if oil prices rise above what he called an acceptable level. Obaid bin Sarif al-Nasseri pledges that the oil cartel will take the necessary measures to restrain any price rise above $30 a barrel.
The loss of the World Trade Center wipes out a lot of office space, and that means companies already coping with human losses have to scramble for new places to reopen for business. Peter Viles reports.
I think what we could simply do there is thinking if we have the space is just put two people in the same room temporarily.
Well, I think in a cubicle.
In a cubicle, yeah.
CEOs do not typically worry about who shares a cubicle, but these are not typical times. This is the old American Express headquarters, structurally sound but damaged. Ken Chenault is moving 5,000 workers, some to this new headquarters in Jersey City, others into 2 larger leased spaces in the Jersey suburbs.
Fortunately, all of our core operations and processing are outside of our New York headquarters building all around the world, so we have had virtually no interruption of service for any of our businesses across American Express.
15.5 million square feet of office space was destroyed, another 12 million damaged, meaning the city's businesses are now looking for 27 million square feet of space. American Express has already located nearly 1 million square feet for itself. When you include suburban office space, metropolitan New York has 46 million square feet of vacant space available. The problem is finding enough large spaces to replace what has been lost.
It is a game of musical chairs right now, where the major companies are out really in a frenzy looking for the larger blocks of space. And commitments are already being made as we speak. So we will be essentially out of large blocks of space by next week.
In the weeks ahead, this area will be known as the new and temporary world headquarters of American Express. Today it has a much more important designation. It is a staging area for supplies to be ferried across the Hudson River to those thousands of rescue workers who are still working in Lower Manhattan. Peter Weil, CNN, Jersey City, New Jersey.
He wasn't looking at office space. He was looking at office space that is now gone. President Bush getting a first-hand look Friday at the site in Lower Manhattan, now known as Ground Zero. Amid the rubble of the Twin Towers, Mr. Bush spoke to rescue workers who responded with patriotic fervor.
Sorry, thank you all.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mo.
What's a boom? Go ahead, got it.
I want you all to know it can't go any louder. I want you all to know that America today is on bended knee in prayer for the people whose lives were lost here, for the workers who work here, for the families who mourn. This nation stands with the good people of New York City and New Jersey and Connecticut as we mourn the loss of thousands of our citizens. I can hear you. I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon. The nation sends its love
Harry, by pushing
and compassion
No, sorry.
to everybody who is here.
Cross the line on that one.
Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for making the nation proud. And may God bless America.
All right, let's get back a little bit, folks. Give him some room.
As if from the rubble, more stories of bravery and compassion continue to emerge. On Friday, Larry King spoke to U.S. Solicitor General Ted Olson about the loss of his wife, Barbara. She was aboard the plane that crashed into the Pentagon and made 2 calls to her husband.
I think she must have been partially in shock from the fact that she was on a hijacked plane. She absorbed the information. We then both reassured one another this plane was still up in the air, this plane was still flying, and this was going to come out okay. I told her it's going to come out okay. She told me it was going to come out okay. She said, "I love you."
He says at one point, Barbara asked him what she should tell the pilot of the doomed plane to do. Olson was a 45-year-old lawyer who often appeared on CNN as a conservative commentator. Larry King also spoke to Michael Hingson, a blind man who worked on the 78th floor of the first World Trade Center tower that was hit. He paid tribute to his guide dog, Roselle, for saving his life.
She did a tremendous job. She's from Guide Dogs for the Blind, which is one of the larger schools in the